Welcome to Andy Ari On3, presented by Wendy's. Didn't think we were doing two of these off the opening window, but we have to because Vanderbilt has gone to Auburn on the plains and stunned the Tigers. Look, Vanderbilt winning after they've beaten Alabama this season and pushed Texas to the brink last week, like that's not a huge surprise, but Auburn only managing 7 points? As somebody texted me just now, Ari, what good is Hugh Freeze if he's only giving you 7 points?
Yeah, it's a really bizarre way to lose because we thought that there was a real chance that they could lose the game because Vanderbilt's just good. But doing it in a way where you just couldn't score is just weird. Like I thought a loss in this game would resemble more of the way the Alabama game went for Vanderbilt, not this. This was bizarre.
Well, and it comes a week after Auburn finally breaks through, wins its first SEC game, or gets its first SEC win by running all over Kentucky. Auburn, okay, well, let's give credit where credit is due first. Vanderbilt wins, bowl eligible. Diego Pavia is amazing. This is his second win at Auburn in 2 years, because remember, he took New Mexico State there and won last year. But this is shocking because Auburn's roster is better now. And like, this is my thing with Hugh Freeze. And I said this on the message boards a few weeks ago. I said, as long as the recruiting class stays together, it's probably fine, but he needs to win some of these games. He shouldn't lose to Vanderbilt. Like, he's getting more talent, at least we think. He has to be able to hold a recruiting class while they're losing games like this. But he's not winning with more talent. Like, if you can't beat Vanderbilt with more talent than Vanderbilt, are you going to beat Georgia with equal talent? Because you're not going to have more talent than Georgia. You can probably get equal to them.
Yeah, because like that's the whole thing too. It's like trying to play up to the best teams in the conference, right? Like the thing that Gus Malzahn did so well when he was the head coach there was that he figured out a way to compete with Alabama, almost every time, right? And
yeah,
he did that because he drew up a game plan and had his team ready to play. And how can you feel like Hugh Freeze can do that? I mean, ironically enough, a year after
we felt
pushing
like it
them
because
all
we
away,
saw it when he was at Ole Miss. Like, that's what he used to do, but he's not doing that anymore, and that makes no sense.
And it's funny because like Peyton Thorne didn't even throw a pick in the game. Like it wasn't even the same old story. And you would think that, what we've been saying about Auburn for the past month is that they're a highly functional team that just can't get it together with the turnovers and the crippling mistakes. And then they come out here and they just aren't effective, period.
Yeah, it was absolutely shocking. Then
the rush for 88 yards in this game.
Yeah.
88.
And Jarquez Hunter rushed for almost 300 against Kentucky by himself. So, yeah. Oh, Ratchet Dewan points out Pavia is actually 3-0 against Freeze because I've heard he did beat Hugh Freeze's Liberty team with New Mexico State also. So, golly, this guy's his kryptonite.
Well, Andy, like your whole thing is that you have to show something on the field, right? And mine is always future, future, future. But we are now getting to the point where it's getting bad enough on the field where you have to start wondering if there's a little like, Bunsen burner underneath the seat that he's sitting on. I don't know. Like, what do you think of Hugh Freeze's safety as Auburn's coach, and how much did today change your viewpoint on that?
It changed it a lot. It changed it quite a bit because, and I said if they lose to Kentucky and Vandy, it was probably going to be curtains. They did beat Kentucky, but I'm looking at this and I'm going, okay, it's more the way they lost to Vandy than anything else. Like, he's the offensive guru, offensive mastermind. Where's the offense?
Yeah,
and like when he was at Ole Miss, he took less and got more. Like, we watched him beat Alabama twice with Ole Miss teams that were not they had talent because he's a good recruiter, but they weren't as talented as those Alabama teams they beat. Zach in the chat says he gets next year with their top 5 class. He's got to land the top 5 class. He got to land the plane on that. And I don't know. And here's why. Because the way buyouts are structured matters. Hugh Freeze is structured in a way that makes it easier to get rid of him sooner rather than later. Because like Billy Napier at Florida, they're probably still going to do it. We'll see how things go as the next few weeks go. But 50% of his buyout is owed within 60 days, which is $13 million if you did it this year. 0% of Hugh Freeze's buyout is owed within a certain amount of time. You just keep paying him a percentage of what his salary would have been. So basically, they would owe him about $4.9 million a year for the next 4 years if they were to fire him. It's just a monthly cost. It's an expensive monthly cost, but Auburn's an SEC team, and they have lots
finance your buyout like it's a television at Best Buy.
It's a mortgage. Yeah. It's paying 2 mortgages is what it really is.
Too soon, man. Too soon for me. That's
I
actually
Ari just bought a new house, and the old house sale didn't quite go through.
Yeah, so we are paying 2 mortgages right now. Thank you for that. But no, you're right. Do you know how many top 100 players are in Auburn's 2025 class right now, though? Like, do you know off the top of your head?
A lot.
They've got 7.
Yeah.
And a few
Deuce Knight,
like
quarterback,
4 or 5 more in the top 150. Like, they have a really, really good recruiting class, which makes me care less about this, which is just the way my brain works.
Okay, well, at the
same time, like, that's
let
like the
throw
best
this at
class.
you, Ari. What if the amount of money guaranteed to those guys through NIL doesn't change, but the coach changes?
I still don't know that would be 100% intact. Do you?
I don't think it would be 100% intact, but would you be losing to Vanderbilt?
Oh, I don't care about the coach. I value the recruits more than the coach everywhere. Like, except unless you're.
Well, I think the coach matters because if the coach can't take a more talented roster and beat a less talented roster, I don't know that it matters how talented your roster is.
What I'm saying is that if I had to choose between the class and Hugh Freeze, I would choose the class. There aren't a lot.
You're saying I see. Okay, I understand.
I'm saying if you think that they could keep them, then bye. Boy, bye.
I don't think they could keep all of them. I doubt very seriously they could keep all of them. But
I'm just going to be controversial here, man.
Yep.
And I'm going to call it the way it is.
Okay.
But Auburn had to swallow a ton of shit when it came to hiring Hugh Freeze in the first place, right? Like, it wasn't an easy hire to make. So you do that because the juice is worth the squeeze there. So not on top of that, you have a person that's coaching your program that doesn't have a great approval rating, to use political terms, now that we're 2 days or 3 days away from the election. Like, the benefit of that, or the drawback of that is supposed to be outweighed by the ability of winning football games. And like, you're going to take that PR hit over and over and over again. Like, every single time Hugh Freeze loses, Twitter's full of these jokes.
Yeah.
And you're going to lose to Vanderbilt with that?
You can write a mortgage payment and make that go away.
And like,
you don't have to
chat here are saying
$15 million cash right now.
That Vanderbilt isn't that bad. That's not the point of this. But Auburn is supposed to be better than them.
Yeah. Yeah, Vanderbilt beat Alabama. Like, Vanderbilt's good this year. I get it. But
so,
man, here, before we heap some praise on Clark Lee, because we do need to do that before we go. Just a stat. Brian Harsin's record at Auburn before he was fired, 9-12. Hugh Freeze's current record at Auburn, 9-16. Now, the idea is Hugh Freeze was going to get better recruits, and I agree with that. Now, Hugh Freeze has tried to blame what he inherited from Harsin, but we here at Andy and Ari On3, and all of you who watch Andy and Ari On3, because I know you guys are sickos like us, you understand that in the year of our Lord 2024, you don't get to blame your predecessor after year one because you had 2 chances to flip your roster already.
In fairness to the man, it was in pretty dire straits. Like, that.
It was not great, Bob.
Yeah, like, flipping the roster, I feel like that's the thing, too, is like that you're right about that, but I think about
Josh Heupel did it, though.
I think about that comment in the shower when we're not talking. That's how much real estate you have in my brain.
Like Kirk Ferentz thinks about punting in the shower?
When you're in the shower, well, he might think about it differently in the shower. I'm just soaping my hair. Andy, when I was talking, or when I was in the shower, I think about our podcast because that's like kind of when I'm in my deep in thought and it's like warm and dark in there. I feel like you say that a lot. And I think I agree with you like 95%. Like, I don't think you're wrong when you say that. But there are also like levels to how much you can like. I mean, not everybody's Dion, right? Like how
Josh
like
Heupel did it in a much harder situation.
Did you think that Tennessee's talent was worse than Auburn's talent, like totality, like takeover?
Probably not.
Takeover?
No, Darnell
like,
Wright was on the roster. Like there were
Auburn wasn't recruiting for like 2 years, and the SEC
that's true.
Terrifying. Like it's like, do we think?
But they have good. Did they have better players today than the team they played today?
They did. Yes.
Did they have better players?
They had a worse quarterback
than the Cal team they lost to at home.
Oh no, your point is taken. Like I'm with you. Like I just, but like also too, this early in the tenure to be talking about firings, like I don't know how rational are we being there? And I'm not saying we're not being. I just want to make sure that we're being. I want to push back on that a little bit.
It's very irrational because it's year 2. But the thing you hired him for, he's not doing. Like, well, you hired him to do several things. He's doing one of them. He's building a good recruiting class, which yes, that is one of the jobs you hired him for. But you also hired him because in the past, when he was an SEC head coach, he outpunched his weight class,
which is perfect for Auburn.
Right. It's exactly what you want.
Yeah.
But now he's not doing that. Now Clark Lee is outpunching his weight class.
Yeah. It's also too, like, I don't want to pile on James Franklin today, but if you do this for one more year, Clark, you might be able to get a 10-year, $100 million contract from a big time program.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. Well, as Clark Lee said after this game, Vandy's his alma mater in his hometown. He was daddy daycare today. They had the baby with him because the wife's with the son at the hockey tournament and the daughter at Taylor Swift. So what a weekend for dad.
Yeah. Yeah. Good on
him,
he
gets home, just kicks the feet up?
He smokes a cigar and films it like Dan Lanning? I don't know. Do something like that. I mean,
Clark Lee's done a fabulous job. You and I have talked about Vanderbilt's situation in the transfer portal NIL era. And basically every time they have a player pop, every SEC team jumps in and tries to steal that player. That they have a team that is bowl eligible now. Let's look at the rest of Vandy's schedule. I see winnable games the rest of the way, even though they might lose them all. South Carolina, LSU, and Tennessee are all really good teams. LSU and Tennessee might be playoff teams, but I'm not doubting these dudes anymore. Like Diego Pavia's got me believing.
Oh yeah, no, they're good. They're just good.
So, but they're bowl eligible. So regardless of what happens in the next 3 games, there will be another game after that for Vanderbilt. Congratulations to Clark Lee and the Commodores. Congratulations to Diego Pavia, who just, like, you own Hugh Freeze. He probably, if the worst happens for Hugh Freeze, he probably owes Diego Pavia a portion of the buyout, if we're being real here.
He does. But it'll be paid over time.
Yeah, it's like $450,000 a month for the next 4 years. You decide if you want 2 mortgages. That's all it is. We'll talk to you soon.
Yep.